My name is Meylysa and I am an ESL teacher in Hawaii Literacy's Drop-In Center. Today I wanted to talk about count versus non-count nouns and all this stuff about how to use and the and when to put an S on things and when to use some and a lot and a few and a little. And your students might ask you this and you might not have any idea about count versus non-count nouns because you know English but you never learned English like they're learning English. So let's talk about it. So some nouns are countable and some are not, right? So in this wonderful book, which explains it very well, and if you're teaching grammar and need to talk about these things, use this book. Just read ahead of your students to learn what you need to know before you teach it. But so some nouns like letter is countable, but male is not countable. Okay, so you can say I have one letter, I have two letters, I have three letters, I have four letters, right? But you cannot say I have one male, two males, three males, because male is non-countable. It's a group of letters and packages and everything called male. Same as water, air, that's all non-countable. Okay, things that are countable, most nouns are countable. So if you have a chair, a table, a student, a teacher, a classroom, a building, an elephant, a tree, those are all countable. But if you have things like money, flour, as in to bake bread flour, salt, sugar, coffee, liquids, water, you know, things like that, those are not countable. Now liquid is countable, but like water is not. With that, there are some exceptions. You can say I want one water, two waters, and that's if you're in a restaurant and you're ordering water, which is different because it's in a different context. So some nouns are both countable and non-countable, but in general, if you learn about this distinction between countable and non-countable, you'll be able to answer all your students' questions and understand why English works the way it does. So the first thing, why do you have to put an when you're talking about nouns? Is because they're countable nouns. You need to put an in front of it when talking about one of them. So if you're saying a dog is a great pet, right? You have to say a dog and you have to say in front of great pet because both those nouns are countable. But if you wanted to say money is important, money is not countable, so you do not need to put in front of money, okay? So this is why you have to put in front of some nouns and you don't have to put in front of other nouns, okay? Now, whenever you're talking about generalizations like money is important, you can talk about count nouns without using when you do generalizations. So you can say cats are important, or dogs are important, or fun, or whatever. Just like money is important. And as long as you put an S at the end, then you can do the same thing as money is important. Cats are fun. Dogs are great. Okay, so put an S after countable nouns, and then you can make generalizations. You can talk about them as if they're groups. Okay, obviously, because you're adding an S and it becomes plural. That's another thing that you have to convey is sometimes they don't know which nouns they have to add an S to or not. You have to add an S to countable nouns if they're plural, alright? So if you're talking about two cats, you have to put an S on it. 3 cats, 4 cats. That you probably already know, okay? But there is a distinction between countable and non-countable nouns. And they have some more examples in this book I was showing you about Azar. Talk about, you know, couch versus furniture, jewelry versus a ring, okay? Jewelry is non-count and furniture is non-count, whereas couch and ring are count. Okay? Now if you want to make non-count nouns countable, you use classifiers, measure words. Alright, use these measure words. So you can say a glass of water, a cup of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, right? Okay? A block of butter. Alright, so you can use different measurements to count non-count nouns. Alright, so that's how you can change it so that become count. And the plural becomes on the count, the measurement word. So cup will have an S. So 2 cups of flour. So that's how you make non-count nouns countable. I'm sorry if you can hear my squeaky door. It's a little windy today, so it's opening and closing. Okay, so now you've got kind of general idea. There are nouns that are countable. There are nouns that are non-countable. The countable nouns, you put an S if you have more than one. You have to put if you only have one. And then they start talking about things like some, and some. Okay, so when you talk about one, you use or n, but you talk about things that are more than one, you could say some. And we already know that, but you can use some in front of non-count nouns, and you can use some in front of count nouns, okay? So you can say some pens, but if you say some pens, you have to put an S at the end of the count noun, right? Because it's a count noun. But if you say some furniture, some mail, you don't need to put the S there. All right? So that's their discussion of some. And then they also talk about, I already talked about measurements, a glass, a cup, many, much, a few, and a little. Okay. So, many goes with count nouns, right? Many goes with count nouns, a few goes with count nouns. So you say many letters, I have many letters, I have a few letters, right? It's count. If you're using a little, or if you're using much, say I don't get much mail, Tom gets a little mail. Alright, so much is used with non-count and a little is used with non-count, okay? Now usually instead of much, like, I don't use much very often. I guess I use much more when you're doing negation, right? I don't have much of this, I don't have much of that. But if I say I have a lot, I would use a lot of. Now a lot of is really easy to teach your students, and it works with count and non-count, okay? So you can say I have a lot of cats, I have a lot of mail. A lot of will work for everything. So you can use a lot of instead of much. And many. Although if they use many, they have to remember it's only for count nouns. So a lot of is a nice way to skip that over that point. But I don't know how to make the few one, a few and a little. You can't, I don't really know of a general one you can use. So remember that a few, when you explain it, it's used with count nouns. Okay, and a little is used with non-count. Okay, so then talk about that. They talk about the deontic use of the. Deontic means to point. So when we talk about the, right, the cat in the picture, talking about something that you and the listener, the speaker and the listener, both understand what you're talking about. You have the context already decided. You know what you're referring to, so you can use the. Okay, the party is going to be on Tuesday. If you say the party is going to be on Tuesday, you know the person you're talking to knows what party you're talking about, right? You can't just say the party is going to be on Tuesday if you didn't tell them there was a party or there's going to be a party. They have to know about this party. So that's what they say about the. And then I already talked about how to make generalizations. If you use some, we already talked about some. Okay, they say that you can use some in affirmative statements like Alice has some money. And in negative statements, you can say Alice doesn't have any money. And you can do the same thing with non-count. You can say Alice has some matches, Alice doesn't have any matches. So they're just talking about some and any. And that's it. But basically, once you get down that there are things that are count nouns, there are things that are non-count nouns, you'll be able to explain why they have to say and why they can say the, or why they don't have to say anything. Like they could say, but they could say the in front of mail. The mail is here. Why can they say the? Because the meaning of the means you understand what I'm talking about. It's the mail. So we say the mail is here because you know there's going to be mail, and I say the mail is here. Okay? I hope this is helpful. I know that it's kind of challenging. When I first started teaching English, I had no idea there was such a thing as count and non-count nouns. And then I found out about them, and they explain all these grammatical things about why we use and the and n, and then I realized, wow, these are very important to understand. So if you have any questions, you want me to explain something further, I am just basically summarizing this. This book is great. As I said, you can learn English grammar along with your students. Just read ahead of them, read ahead, and then teach. Okay, because you already know how to say it, you just don't understand why it's the way it is. There are actually these patterns in the language that explain how and why we say the things we do. Now when we learn it, do we learn it as patterns? Well, we kind of just memorize it one at a time. But anyway, this is important for you to understand, and I hope that it helps you understand count nouns, non-count nouns, and the use of and the and some and much and few and a little and all those nice counting words. Alright, have a great day. Thank you for coming to ESL Teacher, and let me know if you have any other questions. I can try my best to help you out. Okay, bye-bye.